The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Prince William sat across from his wife Catherine in their private study. The weight of the decision they had made together pressed heavily on both their hearts. After months of careful consideration and countless sleepless nights, they had reached a conclusion that would reshape their lives forever. Catherine's hands trembled slightly as she held the official document that would announce their temporary separation from royal duties. The reason was deeply personal, yet profoundly public. William had been offered a unique opportunity to lead a humanitarian mission in a conflict zone, something that could save thousands of lives but would require him to be away for an indefinite period, potentially years. The couple had always been inseparable since their university days at St. Andrews. They had weathered every storm together, from the intense media scrutiny during their courtship to the overwhelming responsibilities that came with their royal titles. But this decision was different. It wasn't about duty to the crown or public expectations. It was about William's calling to serve humanity in its darkest hour. Catherine understood the gravity of the situation. The region William would be deployed to had been devastated by both natural disasters and human conflict. Clean water was scarce, medical supplies were desperately needed, and diplomatic relations were at an all-time low. William's unique position as a royal, combined with his military training and genuine compassion, made him the ideal candidate to lead this critical mission. The children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, were still too young to fully comprehend the magnitude of what was about to happen. They knew Daddy had an important job to do, but the reality of his extended absence hadn't truly sunk in yet. Catherine had spent weeks preparing herself mentally for the challenges of single parenthood while maintaining her royal duties in public. Appearances, friends and family members had offered their opinions freely. Some called William selfish for leaving his young family behind. Others praised him for his courage and dedication to humanitarian causes. The Queen herself had given her blessing, though not without expressing her concerns about the risks involved and the impact on the monarchy's public image. As the announcement was prepared for release to the media, both William and Catherine knew their lives were about to be scrutinized more intensely than ever before. Questions would be raised about their marriage, their commitment to their roles, and their priorities as parents. They had discussed every possible scenario, every potential criticism, and every challenge they would face separately. The palace staff moved quietly around them, making final preparations for what would become one of the most emotionally charged press conferences in recent royal history. Catherine's stylist had chosen a simple but elegant navy dress, knowing that every detail of her appearance would be analyzed by millions of viewers worldwide. William wore his military uniform, a subtle reminder of his service background and the nature of his upcoming mission. In just a few hours, they would stand before the world's media and announce their decision. They would explain William's humanitarian calling, Catherine's continued commitment to her royal duties, and their joint dedication to their children's well-being. But beneath the official statements and carefully crafted words lay a deeper truth. Two people who loved each other deeply were about to embark on the most difficult journey of their relationship. The telephone rang constantly with calls from other royal family members, government officials, and international humanitarian organizations. Each conversation reinforced the importance of William's mission, while simultaneously highlighting the personal sacrifices required. Catherine answered each call with grace and composure, but William could see the growing tension in her shoulders and the slight tremor in her voice. Their final private moments together were precious and fleeting. They spoke about practical matters, how Catherine would handle the children's questions, how they would maintain communication despite time zone differences and security restrictions, and how they would preserve their connection across thousands of miles and months of separation. As the clock ticked toward the announcement time, both William and Catherine retreated into their own thoughts. This wasn't just about a temporary separation or a professional commitment. It was about testing the very foundations of their love, their partnership, and their ability to weather the most challenging storm of their marriage. The hug that would soon capture the world's attention was still hours away, but already, the emotional weight of their impending farewell was becoming almost unbearable. The Grand Hall at Buckingham Palace had never felt more imposing than it did that Tuesday afternoon. Dozens of international journalists filled the ornate chairs, their cameras and recording equipment creating a forest of technology pointed toward the small podium where William and Catherine would soon make their announcement. The air was thick with anticipation and speculation. Catherine entered first, her composure impeccable despite the turmoil raging in her heart. She had practiced this moment countless times in private, but nothing could have prepared her for the intensity of the media attention or the weight of the moment. Her engagement ring caught the light as she adjusted the microphone, a small gesture that photographers captured from every angle. William joined her moments later, and the subtle exchange of glances between them spoke volumes to those who knew how to read the language of royal protocol. His jaw was set with determination, but his eyes betrayed the emotional cost of what they were about to reveal. The couple stood side by side, presenting a united front while privately grappling with the magnitude of their decision. The official statement began with the standard diplomatic language expected at such events. William spoke about his commitment to humanitarian causes and his desire to use his position to make a meaningful difference in the world. He outlined the scope of the mission, the international partnerships involved, and the potential impact on the affected populations. His words were measured and professional, but those who knew him well could detect the passion underlying his formal delivery. Catherine's portion of the announcement focused on her continued royal duties and her dedication to their children. She spoke eloquently about supporting her husband's calling while maintaining stability for their family. Her voice remained steady throughout, though eagle-eyed observers noticed the slight pause when she mentioned the extended timeline of William's deployment. The questions from the press came rapidly and relentlessly. Reporters wanted to know about the dangers William would face, the impact on the monarchy, and the personal toll on their marriage. Some questions bordered on intrusive, asking directly whether they had considered divorce or separation as alternatives to this arrangement. Both William and Catherine handled these queries with practiced diplomacy, but the strain was beginning to show. One particularly persistent journalist pressed them about the children's reactions and whether they felt guilty about putting their parents through such an ordeal. Catherine's composure cracked slightly at this question, her voice catching as she spoke about George, Charlotte, and Louis. William immediately stepped closer to her, a protective gesture that was captured by dozens of cameras and would later become one of the most shared images of the day. The couple explained their decision-making process, emphasizing the months of careful consideration and consultation with family, advisors, and humanitarian experts. They detailed the security arrangements, communication protocols, and support systems that would be in place throughout William's deployment. Every answer was designed to reassure the public while respecting the sensitive nature of the mission. Behind the official responses, however, lay a more complex emotional reality. Catherine had spent sleepless nights imagining worst-case scenarios and wondering whether she was strong enough to handle everything alone. William had wrestled with guilt over potentially leaving his family vulnerable while simultaneously feeling called to serve those in desperate need. The press conference stretched longer than anticipated as journalists continued to probe for personal details and emotional reactions. Palace staff exchanged worried glances as the questions became more invasive, and the couple's carefully maintained composure showed signs of strain. The planned 30-minute session extended well beyond an hour. As the formal portion concluded, photographers called for final pictures of the couple together. They posed with practiced smiles, but the tension was palpable. William's hand rested protectively on Catherine's lower back, a gesture of support that had become second nature over their years together. Catherine leaned slightly into his touch, drawing strength from his presence while knowing such moments were about to become precious memories. The last question came from a veteran royal correspondent who had covered their relationship from its earliest days. She asked simply whether they had a message for couples facing similar challenges of separation due to duty or calling. The question seemed to pierce through all the formal protocol and political considerations, reaching the human heart of their situation. William and Catherine looked at each other before answering. A moment of silent communication that revealed more about their relationship than hours of prepared statements could convey. Their response was heartfelt and genuine, speaking about love, sacrifice, and the importance of supporting each other's deepest convictions, even when the cost is enormous. As the press conference officially ended, the couple remained at the podium for a few extra moments, seemingly reluctant to leave this final public appearance together. The weight of what lay ahead hung between them like an invisible barrier, and everyone in the room could sense that this was more than just another royal announcement. It was the beginning of a profound test of love, commitment, and resilience. The family dinner that evening was unlike any other the Cambridge household had experienced. The formal announcement had been made, the media had their story, but now came the most challenging conversation of all, explaining to George, Charlotte, and Louis what Daddy's important work would really mean for their family. 10-year-old George sat at the head of the children's end of the table, his expression serious beyond his years. He had already begun to understand the weight of royal responsibility through his public appearances and private tutoring sessions about his future role. But this situation was different. It wasn't about protocol or duty. It was about his father potentially being in danger while helping people far away. Charlotte, at 8 years old, possessed an emotional intelligence that often surprised adults. She had noticed the tension in the house over the past few weeks, the hushed conversations between her parents, and the unusual number of serious-looking visitors. Her questions were direct and piercing, delivered with the unfiltered honesty that only children possess. 5-year-old Louis was still trying to grasp the concept of Daddy going away for work. In his young mind, work meant a few hours at the palace or occasional trips that lasted a day or two. The idea of months or potentially years was beyond his comprehension, but he sensed the sadness in his mother's eyes and the unusual seriousness in his father's voice. William had prepared for this conversation as carefully as he had prepared for the press conference, but facing his children's innocent questions proved far more emotionally challenging than facing the world's media. When George asked directly whether Daddy might get hurt while helping people, William struggled to find the right balance between honesty and reassurance. Catherine watched her husband's face as he answered their son's questions, seeing the pain of a father who wanted to protect his children from worry, while also teaching them about courage and service to others. She intervened gently when the questions became too intense, redirecting the conversation toward practical matters like how they would stay in touch and when Daddy might be able to visit. Charlotte's most difficult question came unexpectedly during dessert. She asked whether Mummy and Daddy were getting divorced like her friend's parents had done when her friend's father had to travel for work. The innocent comparison hit both parents like a physical blow, highlighting how their adult decisions inevitably impacted their children's sense of security and stability. The explanation about Daddy's mission became a delicate dance between age-appropriate information and emotional support. William showed them pictures of the places he would be going, carefully choosing images that conveyed the need for help without frightening them with graphic depictions of conflict or disaster. He spoke about building schools, bringing clean water, and helping doctors care for sick children. Louis's response was characteristically direct and heartbreaking. He announced that he would pack his favorite stuffed animal for Daddy to take along, so Daddy wouldn't be lonely at night. The gesture was so pure and loving that both parents had to excuse themselves briefly to compose their emotions before returning to continue the conversation. George, displaying wisdom beyond his years, asked whether they could help Daddy's mission from home. This opened a conversation about how the family would stay connected to William's work, perhaps through letters to children in the affected areas or fundraising activities they could do together. It gave all of them a sense of shared purpose and involvement rather than passive waiting. The bedtime routine that night was extended as each child needed extra reassurance and comfort. Charlotte asked repeated questions about the timeline, trying to understand concepts like indefinite deployment and depending on conditions. Her analytical mind wanted concrete facts and dates, but those were luxuries her parents couldn't provide. Louis insisted on extra stories and songs, clinging to the familiar bedtime rituals that represented security and normalcy. William spent an extra hour in the youngest child's room, knowing these precious moments would have to sustain them both through the long separation ahead. They talked about growing up to be brave and kind, and about how sometimes helping others requires difficult sacrifices. George's questions continued even after lights were out. He appeared in his parents' bedroom twice, once to ask whether he would need to be the man of the house while Daddy was away, and again to express worry about Mummy being sad. His mature concerns revealed how much he had absorbed about adult responsibilities and family dynamics. Catherine found herself emotional as she realized how much her children had grown up just in this one evening. Their questions showed not only their love for their father but also their developing understanding of service, sacrifice, and family loyalty. The innocence of childhood was giving way to a more complex understanding of the world and their place in it. The following morning brought fresh questions as the reality of the situation began to sink in more deeply. Charlotte wanted to know whether other children had daddies who went away to help people, while Louis asked whether the people Daddy was helping had children too. These questions led to deeper conversations about global responsibility and the interconnectedness of human suffering and healing. As the days passed leading up to William's departure, each child processed the information differently. George threw himself into research about the regions his father would be visiting, creating detailed maps and fact sheets as his way of staying connected to the mission. Charlotte began writing letters to her future self about her feelings, while Louis created elaborate drawings of Daddy helping people and coming home safely. The children's reactions became a mirror for their parents' own emotional journey, reflecting both the pain of separation and the pride in William's calling to serve others. The week before William's departure passed in a blur of final preparations, last-minute briefings, and stolen moments of intimacy. Every ordinary activity took on extraordinary significance as the couple tried to create lasting memories while managing the practical necessities of their impending separation. Their morning walks through Kensington Gardens became sacred rituals. Without the children or staff around, William and Catherine could finally express their deepest fears and hopes, without maintaining the brave facade required in public. These conversations meandered through practical concerns about communication schedules and security protocols, to profound discussions about love, duty, and the meaning of partnership. Catherine had always been William's anchor, the person who could calm his anxieties and help him see situations with clarity. Now, as he prepared to venture into one of the world's most dangerous regions, she struggled with her own need for his steady presence, while trying to be the supportive partner he needed. Her strength had always come partly from their unity, and the prospect of facing royal duties and single parenthood alone was daunting. The couple spent hours planning for scenarios they hoped would never occur. They discussed everything from minor illnesses requiring parental decisions to major crises that might demand immediate communication. They established code words for different types of messages, knowing that all their communications would be monitored for security reasons. William's military training had prepared him for dangerous deployments, but this mission was different from his previous service. He wouldn't be part of a structured military unit with clear chains of command and established protocols. Instead, he would be leading a complex international humanitarian effort involving multiple governments, aid organizations, and local authorities with conflicting agendas. The physical preparations were extensive, but straightforward compared to the emotional ones. William's gear included state-of-the-art communication equipment that would allow regular contact with his family, but the time zone differences and security restrictions meant their conversations would be brief and carefully scheduled. They practiced using the encrypted video calling system, trying to make the technology feel natural and comforting rather than clinical and distant. Catherine threw herself into organizing their home life to function smoothly in William's absence. She created detailed schedules for the children's activities, established backup plans with trusted friends and family members, and coordinated with their staff to ensure continuity in daily routines. These practical tasks provided a welcome distraction from the emotional weight of their situation. Their final weekend together was deliberately kept private and unscheduled. They took the children to their country home, where royal protocol could be relaxed and they could simply be a family. William taught George how to tie advanced knots, spent hours reading with Charlotte, and played endless games of hide-and-seek with Louis. Each activity was infused with the bittersweet knowledge that similar moments wouldn't occur for months or possibly years. The conversations between William and Catherine during their final private evenings together revealed the depth of their bond and the complexity of their situation. They talked about their early relationship, remembering how they had supported each other through university challenges and the pressures of their royal courtship. Those memories served as reminders of their resilience and adaptability as a couple. Catherine shared her fears about making important parenting decisions alone, particularly regarding the children's education and public appearances. William worried about missing crucial developmental moments and wondered whether his children would feel abandoned or resentful. They developed strategies for maintaining his involvement in major decisions, despite the geographical and communication barriers. The couple also discussed their individual growth and how this experience might change them both. William acknowledged that witnessing extreme human suffering and working in life-or-death situations would inevitably affect his worldview and emotional landscape. Catherine recognized that taking on increased responsibilities and independence might reveal strengths and capabilities she had never fully explored. Their final night together was spent, mostly in comfortable silence, holding each other and trying to memorize the feeling of being complete as a unit. They had weathered many challenges during their relationship, but nothing had tested their bond quite like this voluntary separation in service of others. The weight of their decision pressed down on them both, accompanied by the knowledge that it was too late to change course. As dawn broke on William's departure day, both were emotionally and physically exhausted from weeks of preparation and worry. They moved through their final morning routines with deliberate slowness, trying to extend every moment. Catherine helped William with his final packing, folding his clothes with extra care and tucking small mementos from home into his luggage. The breakfast table was unusually quiet, as the family shared their last meal together. Even the children seemed to sense the finality of the moment, their usual chatter replaced by careful attention to their father's words and movements. William made sure to have individual conversations with each child, offering final reassurances and extracting promises about good behavior and supporting Mummy. The car that would take William to the airport was already waiting outside, its presence a stark reminder that their private time was nearly over. Palace security personnel moved efficiently around the house, conducting final sweeps and coordinating with the international teams that would oversee William's safety throughout his mission. In their final moments alone together, William and Catherine stood in their bedroom, surrounded by the familiar objects that represented their shared life. The space would remain largely unchanged during his absence, a shrine to their partnership and a promise of eventual reunion. Neither spoke, understanding that words were inadequate to capture the magnitude of what they were about to endure together, yet apart. The private terminal at RAF Northolt had been transformed into a stage for one of the most emotionally charged farewells in modern royal history. Media crews from around the world had been granted unprecedented access to document William's departure, understanding that this moment would define public perception of the royal family's commitment to humanitarian service. Catherine arrived with the children exactly on schedule, her composure impeccable despite the emotional storm raging beneath the surface. She had chosen her outfit carefully, a simple blue dress that photographed well but wouldn't overshadow the significance of the moment. The children were dressed in their finest clothes, understanding that this was an important occasion even if they couldn't fully grasp its implications. William emerged from the aircraft hangar where he had been conducting final briefings with security personnel and mission coordinators. The sight of his family waiting by the plane created a moment of suspended time, as if the universe paused to acknowledge the gravity of what was about to unfold. His military bearing couldn't completely mask the raw emotion of seeing his wife and children for what might be the last time in many months. The official portion of the farewell included brief remarks from William about his mission's objectives and his gratitude for the international support his efforts had received. Government officials and humanitarian organization leaders offered their final words of encouragement and commitment to the mission's success, but everyone present understood that the real drama would unfold in the personal moments between family members. George stepped forward first, his young face serious as he shook hands with his father in a gesture that seemed far too formal for a 10-year-old saying goodbye to his daddy. But then his composure cracked, and he threw his arms around William's neck, whispering something that only his father could hear. William's eyes closed as he held his eldest son, absorbing words that would sustain him through difficult days ahead. Charlotte approached with characteristic directness, presenting her father with a handmade bracelet she had crafted during the previous week. The simple creation of colorful beads was intended as a talisman to keep him safe and remind him of home. She made him promise to wear it every day, extracting a solemn vow that brought smiles to the faces of hardened security personnel watching the exchange. Louis's farewell was perhaps the most heart-wrenching of all. The 5-year-old had prepared, a drawing of their family, complete with stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. He explained to his father that the rainbow meant everything would be okay, and that they would all be together again soon. William knelt to his youngest son's eye level, accepting the precious artwork with reverence typically reserved for state documents. The children were then gently guided to a position where they could observe, but not interfere with their parents' final moments together. Palace staff formed a discreet protective circle, allowing William and Catherine privacy, while ensuring the media could capture the historic significance of their farewell. Catherine had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of watching her husband prepare to board a plane that would take him to one of the world's most dangerous regions. Her training in royal protocol demanded composure, but her heart as a wife and mother screamed against the unnaturalness of this voluntary separation. William took her hands in his, and for a moment they were simply a husband and wife facing an uncertain future, rather than representatives of the British crown. He spoke quietly to her. Words meant only for her ears, while cameras captured every nuance of their body language and facial expressions. Their conversation was brief but intense, covering final reassurances, declarations of love, and promises about staying safe and maintaining their connection across the distance. The embrace that followed would become one of the most iconic images of the 21st century. It lasted longer than protocol typically allowed, with Catherine's face buried in William's shoulder and his arms wrapped protectively around her. The hug conveyed everything that words couldn't express: fear, love, pride, desperation, hope, and an unshakable commitment to their marriage and family. When they finally separated, both had tears in their eyes that no amount of royal training could suppress. Catherine's composure wavered visibly as she stepped back, creating physical distance while trying to maintain emotional strength. William's jaw was set with determination, but his eyes remained fixed on his family as if trying to memorize every detail. The boarding process began with military efficiency, but William hesitated at the aircraft steps, turning back for one final look at his family. The children waved enthusiastically, their innocence providing a counterpoint to the adults' more complex emotions. Catherine stood perfectly still, her hands clasped in front of her, presenting an image of strength and dignity that would be analyzed and admired by millions. The plane's engines roared to life, drowning out any final words that might have been exchanged. William disappeared into the aircraft, while Catherine and the children moved to the observation area to watch the departure. The takeoff was smooth and routine, but everyone present understood they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered and discussed for generations. As the aircraft disappeared into the cloudy British sky, Catherine gathered her children and prepared for the journey home to a house that would feel fundamentally different without William's presence. The media captured her determined stride, and the protective way she shepherded George, Charlotte, and Louis away from the cameras, beginning their new reality as a family temporarily separated by duty and humanitarian calling. The footage of their farewell would be broadcast around the world within hours, generating millions of comments, analyses, and emotional responses from people who felt connected to the royal family's very human struggle with love, duty, and sacrifice. The hug that lasted just moments would be replayed endlessly, becoming a symbol of both the strength and fragility of human relationships when tested by extraordinary circumstances. Within hours of William's departure, the airport farewell footage had spread across every major social media platform, news network, and online publication worldwide. The image of Catherine and William's emotional embrace became viral, in a way that transcended typical celebrity gossip or royal watching. Touching something deeper in the human experience of love and sacrifice, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram were flooded with messages from ordinary people sharing their own stories of separation due to military deployment, work obligations, or family circumstances. The royal couple's very public struggle had given voice to countless private struggles happening in homes around the world. Military families, in particular, felt a deep connection to the Cambridge's situation. Veterans organizations released statements praising William's service, while acknowledging the sacrifice his family was making. Spouses of deployed service members shared photos and stories, creating an unexpected community of solidarity around the shared experience of loving someone who serves others at great personal cost. International, humanitarian organizations seized the moment to highlight their own workers' sacrifices and the families who support them. The footage became a powerful tool for raising awareness about the personal costs of humanitarian work, helping the public understand that aid workers aren't just professionals doing a job, but individuals with families who worry about their safety every day. Mental health advocates use the royal farewell to start conversations about the emotional challenges faced by families, dealing with separation anxiety, single parenting stress, and the unique pressures of maintaining relationships across vast distances. The fact that even royalty struggled with these issues helped normalize discussions about seeking support and acknowledging vulnerability. Religious leaders from various faiths referenced the Cambridge farewell in sermons and public statements, using it as an example of sacrificial love and service to others. The couple's decision was praised as embodying the highest principles of human compassion, while their obvious emotional struggle was presented as a testament to the strength of their bond. Critics also emerged, questioning whether William's mission was necessary, given the disruption to his family and royal duties. Some commentators argued that his unique position as a future king made his safety too important to risk in dangerous regions. Others suggested the entire situation was a publicity stunt, designed to enhance the royal family's image during a period of declining public approval. Child psychologists weighed in on the impact of the separation on George, Charlotte, and Louis, with most expressing confidence in the children's resilience while emphasizing the importance of maintaining stable routines and open communication. Several experts praised Catherine's handling of the situation, noting her balance of honesty with age-appropriate reassurance. The international diplomatic community watched the situation carefully, recognizing that William's mission could have significant implications for British foreign relations and humanitarian policy. His work in the affected region would inevitably be seen as representing British values and priorities, adding layers of political complexity to what was fundamentally a humanitarian effort. Social media analysis revealed fascinating patterns in public response. Younger audiences tended to focus on the romantic aspects of the story, creating hashtags celebrating enduring love and relationship goals. Older demographics were more likely to discuss duty, sacrifice, and family values. Parents shared their own experiences of difficult separations and the impact on children. The footage was analyzed frame by body language experts, royal watchers, and amateur psychologists attempting to decode every gesture and expression. Catherine's composure was universally praised, while William's visible emotion was seen as refreshing authenticity from someone typically required to maintain perfect public control. International news outlets approached the story from different cultural perspectives. American media emphasized the fairy tale romance angle and the couple's relatability. European coverage focused more on the humanitarian mission and its political implications. Asian and African news sources highlighted the regions William would be serving and the significance of high-profile, international attention to their struggles. The economic impact was immediate and measurable. Tourism to locations associated with William and Catherine increased dramatically as people sought to connect with places that held significance for the couple. Sales of items similar to Catherine's farewell outfit spiked, while charitable donations to humanitarian organizations experienced a notable uptick. Celebrity responses ranged from supportive to critical. Many public figures praised the couple's courage and commitment to service, while others questioned the wisdom of the decision or suggested it was motivated by public relations considerations rather than genuine humanitarian concern. A-list celebrities began sharing their own stories of family separation due to career demands. The psychological impact on viewers was profound and varied. Many reported feeling emotionally invested in the outcome of William's mission and Catherine's ability to manage alone. Support groups formed organically online for people dealing with similar separations. Marriage counselors reported increased appointments as couples discussed their own relationships in light of the royal example. Academic institutions began incorporating the Cambridge farewell into curricula ranging from media studies to international relations to psychology. The moment became a case study in public emotion, media influence, and the intersection of private life with public duty. University students debated the ethical implications of broadcasting such intimate family moments. The global response revealed the universal nature of human connection and the way public figures can serve as mirrors for private struggles. The royal couple's very public farewell had become a shared cultural moment that transcended national boundaries, social classes, and cultural differences, touching something fundamental about love, sacrifice, and the complexities of modern relationships. 6 months after William's departure, Catherine stood once again before the world's media. But this time her message was different. The months of separation had tested every aspect of her strength, but they had also revealed depths of resilience she hadn't known she possessed. The children had adapted remarkably well, though they still counted days until Daddy's return on their bedroom calendars. The update she was about to share would change everything. William's mission had exceeded all expectations, successfully negotiating peace agreements that had seemed impossible and establishing infrastructure that would serve the region for generations. But more importantly for the millions who had followed their story, he was coming home earlier than anticipated, his objectives accomplished and his family's sacrifice vindicated. Catherine's announcement was brief but powerful. She spoke about the letters and messages of support her family had received from around the world, describing how strangers had become an extended family offering encouragement and sharing their own stories of love, conquering distance. The global community that had formed around their farewell had sustained her through the darkest moments of loneliness and doubt. She revealed that William's mission had saved an estimated 50,000 lives through improved medical facilities, clean water systems, and conflict resolution. But she also spoke about the personal transformation the experience had brought to their family. The children had developed a global perspective and deep empathy for others' struggles. She herself had discovered leadership abilities and independence she had never fully explored. The most moving part of her statement addressed the millions who had shared their own stories of separation, military deployment, work obligations, and family challenges. Catherine acknowledged that she had learned as much from their messages as they had from her family's experience. The royal platform had become a conduit for ordinary people to connect with each other and find strength in shared struggles. She announced the establishment of a new foundation focused on supporting families dealing with separation due to service commitments. The organization would provide counseling, communication resources, and financial assistance to military families, humanitarian workers, and others whose service to society required personal sacrifice from their loved ones. The news of William's early return sparked celebrations around the world, but Catherine was careful to acknowledge that not all separation stories have happy endings. She honored military families who had lost loved ones, humanitarian workers who never made it home, and countless others whose sacrifices often go unrecognized by the general public. As she spoke, footage played of William's work in the field, building schools, treating patients in makeshift hospitals, and mediating between conflicting parties. His obvious dedication and the tangible results of his efforts provided powerful justification for the family's sacrifice and the public's emotional investment in their story. The reunion date was set for the following month, and Catherine announced that it would be private, allowing the family to reconnect away from media attention. However, she promised a public appearance shortly afterward where William would share his experiences and thank the international community for their support of both his mission and his family. Catherine's closing remarks became one of the most quoted statements in royal history. She spoke about love being action rather than just feeling, about sacrifice being meaningful only when it serves something greater than oneself, and about the strength that comes from community support during times of testing. The global response to her announcement was immediate and joyful. Social media exploded with congratulations, relief, and celebration. The hashtag #WelcomeHomeWilliam trended worldwide within hours. Military families shared photos of their own reunions, creating a digital celebration of all families separated by service. International leaders praised William's humanitarian achievements, with several announcing new commitments to the regions he had served. The diplomatic ripple effects of his mission would continue long after his return home, as his work had opened new channels for international cooperation and aid distribution. The announcement also sparked discussions about modern royal duties and the evolving role of the monarchy in addressing global challenges. William's mission had demonstrated that royalty could be more than ceremonial, that their unique position could be leveraged for genuine humanitarian impact while maintaining the dignity and traditions that defined the institution. Children around the world had followed the story with particular interest, and many schools had incorporated the Cambridge family's experience into lessons about geography, current events, and family values. Teachers reported that students had developed greater appreciation for their own families and increased interest in helping others. Inspired by William's example of service and the family's demonstration of love overcoming obstacles, the economic impact of the announcement was swift and positive. British tourism experienced another surge as people planned visits to celebrate William's return. Charitable organizations reported record donations, and applications for humanitarian work positions increased dramatically as young people sought to follow William's example of meaningful service. Catherine's personal transformation throughout the ordeal had been remarkable to witness. The shy young woman who had once seemed overwhelmed by royal duties had emerged as a confident leader, capable of managing complex family and public responsibilities simultaneously. Her growth had inspired countless women facing their own challenges with single parenting, career pressures, and family obligations. The children's resilience had become a source of inspiration for families worldwide. George's mature handling of increased responsibilities, Charlotte's emotional intelligence in supporting her mother, and Louis's maintaining of joy and innocence despite difficult circumstances showed that children could adapt and even thrive when given honest information and consistent support. As Catherine concluded her announcement, she shared one final piece of news that brought tears to many viewers' eyes. The artwork that Louis had given his father, the stick figure family under a rainbow, had been photographed with William at every major milestone of his mission. The simple child's drawing had traveled to refugee camps, medical facilities, and peace negotiation sites, serving as a reminder of the love and hope that motivated his work. The global community that had formed around the Cambridge family's story began planning their own celebrations for William's return. Veterans organizations, military family support groups, humanitarian workers, and ordinary citizens who had felt connected to their journey all found ways to participate in the joyous conclusion to months of worry and anticipation. Catherine's final words emphasized that while their particular story was ending happily, the work of supporting families in similar situations was just beginning. The foundation she had announced would ensure that the lessons learned and connections made during their separation would continue benefiting others facing comparable challenges. Their personal trial had become a catalyst for broader social support and understanding. The press conference ended with Catherine walking toward the palace entrance, her stride confident and purposeful. She had entered this experience as a supportive wife and protective mother, but had emerged as a leader in her own right, someone who had discovered her own capacity for strength and service. The transformation was visible to millions of viewers who had followed her journey from that emotional airport farewell to this moment of triumphant announcement. The story that had begun with tears and uncertainty was concluding with hope and celebration, proving that love, commitment, and community support could overcome even the most daunting challenges. The image of that final embrace at the airport would always represent the pain of separation, but it would now also symbolize the strength of love that endures across any distance and through any trial.